Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 151 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest will be the one and only Bernardo Faria. But before we get to that, let's do our quote. And that is, training is about skill development, not about winning or losing. You don't need to win every battle. You only need to win the battles that count. And that's from John Danaher. All right, Professor Bernardo Faria is a 5-time Jiu-Jitsu world champion and owner of the Bernardo Faria BJJ Academy. He's co-founder and co-owner of BJJ Fanatics, among many other endeavors. In this interview, we talk about him growing up and how he got started in Jiu-Jitsu, what that journey's been like for him. We talk about some of his world championships, his mindset going into those and what that was like, his favorite technique and setup, what is needed to be a successful competitor, and how a person can build mental toughness for competition. We talk about the core values and mission statement of his academy, and we get into BJJ Fanatics, how it got started, and what it's evolved into today, and who, in his opinion, are some of the best instructors. I asked him about what makes him such a nice guy, and what are the biggest changes he's seen in Jiu-Jitsu over the years. And we finish up with what about Jiu-Jitsu has brought him the most joy. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. After the interview, make sure you stay tuned to the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now, without further ado, let's talk to Bernardo. All right, I'm speaking with Bernardo Faria. So, Bernardo, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Marty. It's my pleasure, and I'm excited to talk with you and to talk to your audience.
Thank you. Well, I know you have a ton going on, and so I really do appreciate you taking the time. I do have a number of things I want to talk to you about, your competitive career, BJJ Fanatics, and other things. But if you would, let's just get started by, I know you are originally from Brazil, but
Yep.
If you would just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what led you to Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, so I started Jiu-Jitsu in 2001 in my hometown, Juiz de Fora. It's like a middle-sized type town in Brazil. It's not like very big and not very small. It's like 500,000-600,000 people, the population. And it's in Minas Gerais. It's like 2 hours from Rio de Janeiro, which was a big help for me because when I started Jiu-Jitsu in 2001, Rio de Janeiro was kind of like what California is for Jiu-Jitsu nowadays, right? Where every single best Jiu-Jitsu school is out there. All the big tournaments were there and this and that. So anyways, I started Jiu-Jitsu in 2001 when I was 14 years old in my hometown. And then I lived there from 2001 to end of 2008. That's when I finished my college. I did college in Brazil about business. And then when I finished my college, I moved to São Paulo to train at Alliance, which was the best jiu-jitsu school in the world at that time, and maybe still is. And then I lived in São Paulo from 2009 to 2013. I was training under Fabio Gurgel, and then I moved to New York City to train under Marcelo Garcia from 2013 to 17. And then 17, I retired from competing, and I moved back to Boston. I moved to Boston to focus 100% on BJJ Fanatics.
Wow. Well, that was a quick and concise and efficient wrap-up of your jiu-jitsu career really quick like that. It's great.
Yeah, there's a lot more on every
right.
But I mean, like, if I had to do a timeline, that's
sure.
the timeline.
That's great. So jumping back there, Fabio Gurgel, what a great, an amazing person to be able to learn under and build some of your foundation initially, right?
100%. I was very lucky with my instructors, and it was just like lucky. My first instructor, the one who gave me all my belts, Ricardo Marques. I trained for him from white to black belt. He gave me all my belts, and he built my foundation. He was really, really good with fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, basics of jiu-jitsu, and etc. Then when I went to São Paulo to train with Fabio Gurgel, that's the time that I kind of like optimized everything I had in my jiu-jitsu and made everything tighter, and I kind of like gave an upgrade to my jiu-jitsu. And then when I moved to New York to train under Marcelo, that was like another upgrade, like it was a different game that Marcelo has, a different like way of training. So all those stuff that I added up to my game helped a lot in my career. And when I look backwards, I see that being around the best people makes a huge difference on any professional career, and I was very lucky that in Jiu-Jitsu I had those opportunities.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things about Jiu-Jitsu is we always keep learning, right? And as good as a one instructor we have is, and it may be just what we need at that time in our lives, and then later, that whole adage of when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Later on, you're at a different place, and you get another instructor, and hopefully that's exactly what you need for that stage of your journey. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, because I think every time you change something, you get some evolution and some progress. So, for example, I was used about the training style of my hometown. Then I went to São Paulo. That was a big change. And then I had to adapt to a bunch of like different styles, different people. And then when I went from São Paulo to New York City, that was another big change. So just put in perspective, for example, in São Paulo, we would do like 9 jiu-jitsu gi trainings per week and 1 no gi. Then when I went to Marcelo's, it was like 5 gi trainings and 5 no gi trainings. So it was a big shift in the way I was training. And so I think all these shifts makes you better. At first, you get out of your comfort zone and it's hard. Mm-hmm. But then like a few months later, you're like, oh my God, I got better here. So,
well, that's the heart of all growth, is getting out of our comfort zone. And for a lot of people, that's hard because, when the ego comes to play and you've achieved a certain amount of skill or status, in one place, it's sometimes can be hard to give that up and look like the beginner again. And some are, somewhat of a beginner, but the people that can really do that and have that, for lack of better words, that white belt mentality, going forward,
I fully agree.
Are the ones that really grow. Yeah.
No, 100%. And when I look back at my career, every single beginner's year that I had made me much better. So, for example, at some point I trained judo, and that helped my jiu-jitsu a lot. At some point I trained wrestling, and that was like one of the biggest things I did in my career, because my whole game was very like wrestling oriented, kind of like pressure passing when you were on top, single leg half per sweep when you were on borrow. And then at some point I did the physical conditioning with a one-on-one coach. That was a big change too. So all those times that you start as a beginner makes you much, much better.
Totally agree with that. Totally. Now, as far as timeline, were you already world champion when you went up to Marcelo's, or was that on your way to achieving that?
Yeah, so in my hometown, I won the world's purple belt open class and I got second as a blue belt and brown belt in the world. So when I went to São Paulo, I was already like pretty high level in Jiu-Jitsu, but I was not the black belt world champion, so. And then moving to São Paulo and training with all those best athletes in the world made me get that confidence that, okay, I can do this, I can win. So I won the worlds in São Paulo in 2010. Then I got second in my division and second in the open class in 2011. And then in 2012, I won the worlds again. So when I went to Marcelo, I was 2 times world champion, I think. So,
gotcha. So let's take you back to your first world championship. So you did mention confidence. So obviously you felt on some level that you had the ability to win, but how confident were you leading up to that? What was your thought process like and your mindset? Did you really feel like I've got this, I'm going to go in to destroy, or were there some doubts, but you were going to try to pull it off? Where were you at that time?
Yeah, I think you always have some doubts, right? But for example, in 2009 was my first year as a black belt, and I got 3rd place. I lost to Roger Gracie in the semifinals. So in 2010, I already started that year thinking like, okay, this could be my year. I got 3rd place last year, so this could be my year. And then I had a great Pan American championship. I won the double gold in the Pan American. So I won my division and I won the absolute. So I was very confident to the worlds that year. But I mean, like, you never know if you there's so much that can happen in the. But yes, I got pretty confident when it was 2010 in the worlds because I had got 3rd place 1 year before, and I had won the double gold in the Pan Ams. But and then that year I beat Xande Ribeiro in the finals. And I mean, like, when you're competing against Xande, you never know if you're gonna win.
Right.
He's a very, very high level competitor. But yes, I was never that type of person who overnight become crazy good. So I was always building up. Like, I got 3rd place here. I won double gold in the Pan Ams now. So, and then I had won the purple belt open class a few years earlier, so I knew I had that level, but you never know if you're gonna actually make it or not.
Yeah, sounds like you were really on a roll. From first of all, I admire that. I admire someone who grinds it out year after year and makes steady, small but not steady progress until it becomes big, and that perseverance, and that pays off. It's much more gratifying hearing that than someone who was just kind of a natural and just didn't have to struggle that much. So that's great that you kept doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
There are some guys that think they're blue belt or purple belt, they win like double gold on every tournament. Everybody knows.
Right.
Like Buchecha, right? Like, I think he won the double gold as a purple belt. He won the double gold as a brown belt. It was kind of expected that he would win a lot as a black belt, and I did well in the lower belts, but not that well that, okay, I'm sure I'm going to be the best one as a black belt,
Yeah, but on that particular year, it was your year and you were on a roll and you were leading up to it and you did pull it off. But like you said, when it's that level, you just never know. There's so many things that could happen. So yeah. So fast forward to your 5th. How was that different mindset-wise? Where was your headspace leading up to that? How had things changed and where were you at that point?
Yeah, so in my entire career, I almost had like a, how do I say, kryptonite?
Kryptonite?
Yeah, kryptonite. I was always winning the tournaments, but I was also losing a lot to Rodolfo Vieira. That was my kryptonite in Jiu-Jitsu. So I had never won the double gold in the world, the open class, right? Then in 2014 was the last time I lost to Rodolfo, and then he never fought again because he kind of went to MMA and that kind of stuff. But from 2014 to 2015, and that's what we were talking earlier, like, I changed a lot of things. So one, I started doing wrestling. That was a big deal. Like, that helped a lot in my game. 2, I started working professionally with a conditioning coach, 101. And he's one of the best in the industry. It's called Kevin Peretti. He also works with Lucas Lepre and this and that. So I started working for him. That was another big change. And another change that happened as well is that we started the building the websites in the end of 2014. So 2015 was the first year that Jiu-Jitsu was not like, that the competition was not like everything I had, like, so I think that helped me mentally as well, like I had something else besides.
Right.
And so those three things were big change from 2014 to 2015. And then coincidence, 2015 was the best year of my career. Like I won the double gold in the Pan Ams and the double gold in the Worlds. And in the Worlds, I did 7 matches and I got 6 submissions. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. And then looking back, you never know like what was the main factor. It was wrestling, it was conditioning, or it was this mentally shift that I had. So,
right. Well, it certainly came together for you, and for at that high level to get 6 out of 7 submissions in your victories. That is amazing.
Yeah, no, that it's for sure one of my most proudest moments in my career. Like, yeah.
Yes. So, what was did you have a favorite technique or finish that was your go-to, or were you just pretty much open to? I mean, everybody has a game plan. So, what was your favorite finish, and how did you usually set that up?
My whole jiu-jitsu was always very like game plan based. So when I was on bar, I was always playing half guard, either like single like half guard or deep half guard. And when I was on top, I was always playing the over-under pass. So, and that's one thing that made my career very interesting, because all my opponents and the audience and everybody knew what I would do, and I would do it anyways, and would work most of the time. But
I love it.
But replying your specific question, my favorite submission was they call it the dog bar, which is a knee bar from the over-under pass. And I loved it because I would just chase the over-under pass, and then from there, I could either try to pass the guard or try to hit the submission. And even if the submission didn't work, I could just still passing. I wouldn't miss or lose any good position. Doesn't make sense?
Absolutely. Nice.
Yeah.
So everything kind of built around that. So
yeah.
Before we leave the competition arena, what do you feel like is the biggest thing needed to be a successful competitor, and also how can a person build mental toughness for competition?
Okay, so I think the most important thing to become a great competitor, it's consistency, because I see a lot of guys that they say that they want to become champions and this and that, and then they do that for 6 months, then they quit for 2 months, then they come back again all crazy excited again, and then they do that for 3 months, then they quit for another 2 or 3 months, and then they're excited again. They're not consistent with their goals and their and etc. Like, so I think consistency is definitely the most important part. Like, being from day one until the end of your career, be consistent. Like, don't give up. Don't go do another stuff. Don't be excited one day and crazy and motivated the other day. I understand that it fluctuates. Some days you're more excited than the others, but just put a goal and go towards that goal. Like, don't change it. And then the other question was, what was the other question? Sorry, there was 2 questions in the question.
The other question was, how can a person build mental toughness for competition?
Yeah, so I think the way I built my mental toughness was like, Jiu-Jitsu for me in general was a very challenging thing because my whole family was against it. And I was like 14 years old when I started Jiu-Jitsu. And then when I decided that I would do that for a living, I was probably like 15 or 16, and nobody believed on me, like, and everybody thought that I was, because Jiu-Jitsu was pretty small at that time, right? And it's still small nowadays compared to other sports, but at that time it was very small. And my whole family is like a very, that type of like traditional family, like that you either become like a lawyer or engineering or doctor, one of those traditional jobs. So when I told everybody that I would do jiu-jitsu, my parents got like completely crazy and, what are you doing, this and that, you're not going to be able to pay your bills, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I was always forced to create that mental toughness since I was very young, like, because it was pretty much like my belief versus everybody's beliefs.
Wow.
And I think this is mental toughness, like it's when you believe on something that nobody believes, and you wake up every day with that belief, and you're willing to do anything in order to achieve that, when I mean like doing anything without stepping on people's toes or anything like that.
Sure.
So
to go to any lengths needed, right?
Yeah, so I think that's how I built my mental toughness. Like, was since I was 14 or 15 years old, I was pretty much like going against the desires of my family, and even though I loved them and they loved me, and then like a few or several years later, when they saw that that thing was real and that, they all supported me, and I understand that, because if I nowadays I think different, but if I was on their shoes and I had the sons that is think about doing this sport that nobody knows, that actually is very hard to make money on it, I would be very worried. So, but yeah.
You can see why they would be concerned. It wasn't really a path that was well known or known for being able to make a great living at the time. So certainly you can understand where they're coming from. But man, props to you, because I think a lot of mental toughness and discipline can be learned for sure and cultivated. But I also think there's a certain mental toughness, like you're describing, where you're driven, and it doesn't matter who says anything or what obstacles you encounter, nothing's going to stop you, and you have that internal drive, which is rare actually. So man, that's great.
No, I appreciate that, Marky, but that's exactly how it was. And I had a lot of obstacles, like a lot of injuries that I didn't know if I would be able to come back in the highest level. So I questioned myself a lot if I should keep doing that. And coincidence, like my dad forced me to do college in my hometown. And in the last like 1 or 2 years of my college was when I got like my worst injuries. So it's almost like a question mark. Like, I'm gonna finish my college in 1 or 2 years. I get all these injuries. What should I do? Like, but I'm very glad that I picked Jiu-Jitsu, because I think life is long, but life is short, but life is long. I mean, like, if you consider that there's like millions of years on Earth, and we only live 80 or 90 or 70 years,
right.
Life is short. But when you think that you're gonna need to wake up every day, Monday to Friday, and work 8 hours per day on something, then life becomes very long. Like,
exactly.
So I would rather do something that I love, and
Well, I'm glad you, and not just me, millions of people are glad you found something you love, not only because how entertaining it is to seeing you compete, but all the things you're doing now to really make an impact in Jiu-Jitsu in the world. And you mentioned life is short. I want to shift right now to talk a little bit about your academy. I'm on your site right now, and just want to read a little bit of your core values listed on your site and your mission. It says, we want to be the place you escape to for a few hours of the week that set the tone for the rest. When you are here, you will smile, laugh, while you work harder to achieve your goals, etc. And the mission, we're committed to creating an environment for you to have more fun, work harder, and achieve more than you ever thought possible. We believe that life goes by fast, and we want to help you live it with passion. So I really love these, because obviously you're going to work hard there, but when you said you're going to smile and laugh, that really stands out. And also have fun, and life goes by fast, and we're going to help you live it with passion. I really love that attitude and that philosophy there.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I think. Like, I think exactly like this. Like, life is short, but life is long. It's short and goes fast, but I mean, like, everybody has to work, right? And unless you were born from a rich family or something, which is not my case. But so if you have to work every day, 8 hours per day, then life becomes very, very long. So you better do something that you love, that's something that you're passionate about, and then you're gonna wake up excited every day to do what you have to do. Like, so yeah, that's exactly how I think, and you describe it even better. So I appreciate it.
No, it's wonderful. So let's talk about BJJ Fanatics, because I'm excited about this. I think it's an amazing site, an amazing thing you're doing. So just how did that get going? And we'll talk a little more about that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I think everything starts with this challenge that I have when I was very young, right? Because I came from this family that put a ton of pressure on me on like making a living and being able to have a comfortable life and pay the bills and that kind of stuff. So while I was doing jiu-jitsu and competing, I was always thinking like, what am I gonna do after this? You know, like at some point, this competition era is gonna stop. You know, like and when you're a professional athlete, it's quick. You know, like it's 10 or 15 years that you compete, and then your body's falling apart. You don't have the motivation anymore. So I always had that in mind. Like, what am I gonna do after this? So at first, my mindset was like, okay, I'm gonna open up a jiu-jitsu school as everybody does. And I'm going to try to grow that school as much as I can and deliver a great experience to my students, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my initial mindset. But then it happened that in the middle of the journey, I met my business partner, Michael Zenga, and I have two partners. They're both called Michael, so Michael Zenga and Michael Reardon. And in 2014, I became friends with Michael Zenga. And he had done some kind of like a side gig selling some jiu-jitsu DVDs. And it was not actually like a business, it was just like a side gig for him. And he was able to make some small returns from that and that. But we both loved the jiu-jitsu so much, you know, like. And when he first invited me to make one DVD, I rejected the offer because I had another offer already that I pretty much had signed the agreement already. And but then he was like, Bernardo, I watched some of your YouTube matches, and my style is exactly like your style. Like I play half guard and I play over underpass. And Michael was already a black belt, and he was like probably like on his 40s or something. And so he was like, man, why don't you come here and teach a seminar, and I organize the seminar to you, and at least I can learn from you the half guard and the over under. So in reality, I think he was more interested to learn the over under pass and the half guard sweeps than actually making a DVD. Like that's kind of what I realized later. and then I came to Boston. I taught that seminar that he helped to organize. And then was one of those life coincidences that my wife was going to every single seminar with me, but then that one she didn't, and she had something, and then she didn't go with me. So then Michael was like, "Hey, if your wife comes, you stay in a hotel. I got a hotel for you. If she doesn't come, stay at my house, and then you teach me a private lesson next day in the morning before the seminar," because he had mats on his basement. And then that night we pretty much didn't sleep, you know, like we went until like 5 a.m. talking about like what he had done on other business, and he had some knowledge about internet market, digital marketing, that kind of stuff, and we were both talking about how passionate we were about jiu-jitsu, and we were also talking about like, man, look what happened here. Like I wanted to learn half guard and I wanted to learn over underpass, and I had to travel you from New York to Boston, and imagine if you lived very far from me, like I would probably miss this opportunity. So there is a lot of value on selling jiu-jitsu DVDs. You know, like at that time it was DVD, and there is a lot of value because a lot of people would love to learn from guys like you, and it's hard for them. Not everybody can do what I just did. So we start thinking about those ideas, you know, like and then we kept talking, and Michael would call me like almost like every day to ask jiu-jitsu questions. And I would call him as well and tell him the experience that I was doing on the internet. Because he told me that day, he was like, Bernardo, the only reason I know you, it's not because you are world champion. It's because I watched one of your YouTube matches.
Nice.
So if I had not watched that match, I would have no idea who you are. So if you could be a lot more exposed in the internet, a lot more people would know you, and a lot more people would invite you for seminars and that kind of stuff. So since that day, I started digging in the internet. You know, I started running like Facebook ads to my matches, Facebook ads like to my jiu-jitsu seminars. I started posting on YouTube and that kind of stuff. So Michael would call me to ask jiu-jitsu questions, and I would call him to tell him my experience. Oh, yeah, I ran ads to this highlight that I made, and I got like 90 comments, and 2 guys invited me for seminar, one example. And that was like, that's how the business kind of started. It was a lot of conversations, and then at some point, Michael is the very entrepreneurial mindset. So he was like, Bernardo, let's do something here. I'm going to send you a $1,000 check. Spend this whole thing on Facebook and tell me what happened. And just document everything. And then my Facebook page grew a lot. I got more seminars. I got more exposed in the internet. And then at some point, he was like, man, I think we have a business here. Why don't you start a website and we start selling these DVDs that I made, and we make more DVDs. And you do this thing that you're doing on Facebook and YouTube and blah, 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 blah. And you keep doing this traffic thing that you're learning, and let's see what happens. And that's kind of how it started. So it was pretty cool.
What a great story, man. I love hearing stories about how things just kind of come together. You know, you had no idea what was going to happen, but you come there for a certain reason, and things just start, you know, blossoming into something really great. And it's very cool to hear that. And good for you. Props to both of you, because, man, you're really making an impact. I'm sure you'd never envisioned it to be what it is now, and it's obviously going to continue getting even better. But let me ask you, I know you've had tons of great instructors, so I'm not asking you to pick, you know, favorites or anything, but can you think of a few that stand out as immediately you knew they were great instructors when they were there with you, and something, you know, that made you think, wow, and what was it about them that made them great?
I mean, like, it's hard to talk about this and not talk about John Danaher, right? Because he was like I think he developed jiu-jitsu a lot with especially with the heel hook thing, right? So everybody knew heel hook, but not only like a few people really knew how to do it. And then he came and completely changed the word, optimizing the leg attacks, the heel hooks, and this and that. And the way that he teaches, the way that he lives his life, the way that he coaches, it is very, very, very different and very like science-based type of coach. So that was like an amazing experience and especially in the beginning, every single instructor that he would film, we would sit on the mat and be there with him for the whole weekend, the whole week sometimes. So wow. I learned a lot just by seeing how he articulates, how he teaches, how he thinks, how he coaches, how he lives the lifestyle, which is even the most impressive part. Like that's what he does, like 24 hours per day, every single day, and it's incredible, you know. Like so I mean, like being around all these coaches, I'm very grateful and thankful for it, because everybody has something that they're the best in the world on that thing. And but anyways, mentioning some names here, I would say like John, Marcelo. I had the opportunity to learn from him live, and when I was teaching and coaching at his school, and also all the instructionals. Now seeing what Gordon's doing to everybody, it's like incredible to watch how he thinks about jiu-jitsu and how he goes there and perform. So we have the opportunity to talk with him so much and see what goes in his mind, and then watch the TV and see him doing exactly what he thinks, you know, like. And so I'm just very like grateful and thankful to have the opportunity to be around of so many coaches and fighters and see how they think and see how they, you know, like, for example, when he filmed with Khabib, it was very, very interesting, because in my opinion, he's the best MMA fighter in the planet. And that you were there with him for a day discussing every single technique that he does and what goes on his mind when he's doing the technique. So those opportunities are priceless, you know. And I think at the end of my life, I'm not going to remember the revenue of the website or the profits. I think what I'm going to remember is those experiences, like how was the day with Khabib, how was the day with Mike Tyson, how were the days with John Danaher, Gordon, Marcelo Garcia, Buchecha, Fabio Gurgel, Mikey Musumeci, all those guys, so it's such a grateful and thankful experience.
Yes. I can relate, not to the level that you're doing it, but just even with this podcast, it's been an amazing avenue or vehicle to be able to connect with people that I never would have been able to, and to listen to their stories and their insights and their journeys, and just like we're doing today. So I'm so grateful that I've started this 8.5 years ago. So I can relate to, like you're describing, being able to absorb from these various people. And now there's so many people like Danaher and Gordon that break it down on such a cerebral, logical way, systematic way, or to process and to do jiu-jitsu, that I think more than ever before. One thing I do want to talk about BJJ Fanatics that I'm not sure that everyone is aware of is there's a Become an Instructor tab that you can click on, and obviously you bring some people into your studio and film there, but people that want to make videos of their own have the ability to send those to you guys, and you edit them and put them in the format needed, and they can actually become partners with you, right?
Yeah, we have an application form, and then we look on case by case, but most of the time, yes, we accept, and we can do that, and it's great because many times, I don't know everybody, right? And many times there are some great instructors from these small towns that nobody knows, but they know how to teach jiu-jitsu really, really well. So that's why we started that tab, and it's being a very successful option for the business and for the community. And you can do that. You can just in top right corner of the website, there is a tab over there called Become a Coach, and then you can just click and do the application, and you go from there.
I think that's so good, man. It opens up so much opportunity for to spread jiu-jitsu and have more instructors from, like you said, sometimes little tiny places get their style, get their word out, and people benefit from that for sure.
Yeah, and I think that this is our mission in jiu-jitsu, and with our business and that is to serve the jiu-jitsu community, so we wanna serve the community. So we want to serve those instructors that nobody knows, that are great instructors. We want to serve the instructors who are amazing instructors that everybody knows. And now we are also starting, we are launching our first jiu-jitsu camp. That's going to be a 5 days training with me, Michael, Nico, and one surprise guest, one of our instructors. It's going to be a surprise. And it's going to be in New Orleans in November. We started with New Orleans because we wanted to do a U.S. location that also has some tourism involved, because we want to mix jiu-jitsu with experience. And I've never been to New Orleans, so it's going to be a great experience for me as well. And we are also launching the Insiders Club, which is one area of the website where we hope to increase the interaction between instructors and students. So we're going to have rolling sessions with voiceover from the instructors. We're going to have AMA. We're going to have match analysis. We're going to have private lessons instead of the instructor teaching a curriculum. It's going to be one person taking a lesson with the instructor, asking all the questions that person has that might be the same questions that everybody has. So I think that's our goal for Jiu-Jitsu, is to make sure that we can serve this amazing community in different ways. And I truly believe that the best part of Jiu-Jitsu is not even the techniques, and it's not even how Jiu-Jitsu works. It's the community that you build, because Jiu-Jitsu is one of the few places in Earth, in my opinion, where there is no politics, there is no race, there is no color, there is no... once you step on the mat, everybody is the same person. There's no that guy is rich, that guy is poor, or that guy is black, white, or Asian, or... So I think these communities that Jiu-Jitsu builds, it's the beauty of the sport.
Yes.
And I think this is a result of how jiu-jitsu works, because it's the gentle art, right? So the same time that you're training for a training partner and you want to beat him, you are not beating him on a way that hurts. It's pretty gentle. So I think that creates this connection between everybody. Like everybody's trying to get better and trying to beat each other, but in a very friendly way. It's not like as a boxing or Muay Thai or kickboxing that you're literally punching each other in the face,
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree with that. It's a real community. It's a way to be connected, no matter where you're coming from or what your background or your status in other parts of your life. It's just a beautiful way where we all come together and connect. And it's very evident, what you just said about making an impact through BJJ Fanatics way beyond the mat, and you do. I also commend you because your heart's in the right place. You can tell with this that you really want to give back to people. And like one example of that is during COVID, offering some free content for people. Things like that are just, amazing displays of that you want to give people access to jiu-jitsu and everything that can do beyond just time on the mat, which is awesome as well.
Yeah, we don't want to be that company that only sells stuff. We want to be the company who contributes somehow. So that we are always thinking about what can we do to help the community. So when that thing happened, the pandemic happened, we gave the free videos. Then we started a fund to help the jiu-jitsu schools that were closing the doors.
Wow.
Right now, for example, when the Leandro Lo thing happened, in the same day, we started a fund for the institute that his family is building, and also to support his family and etc. So we are always thinking what can we do to support the community, because
yes.
I'm very grateful and thankful for the jiu-jitsu community. And the jiu-jitsu literally changed my life. And I grew up with this challenge, what I'm gonna get from jiu-jitsu, and nowadays I have a lot more than I ever thought I would. I got a lot more than I thought I would ever get. So I want to make sure I can get back as well.
Beautiful, man, love it. And it's one thing I really, and I believe a lot of people admire about you. You just seem to be a truly genuine and super nice guy. So I applaud that. Let me ask you, do you have a belief set or code you live by that leads to this, or do you feel like it's just the way you were made, or what makes you such a really nice guy?
I think the way if you ever meet my parents, I think you would, I think that's the way we were raised, so my mom is that type of person that is always trying to help everybody, and she's always doing stuff in my hometown to help others and that kind of stuff. And I'm also a believer that we only live once, right? And you can control your emotions, but you can kind of choose if you're going to be a happy person or a sad person. Mm-hmm. There is even a quote in Brazil that some people say that's sadness doesn't pay the bills. So. There's no benefits on being sad, So I try to be a happy person, and I think when you're happy, that's contagious, and
yes.
and happiness brings good stuff, So if you're in a bad mood, you might attract bad stuff around you. You might get irritated with this person, you might have an issue with the other person. And I think when you're happy, it's the opposite. Some people irritate you and you don't care. Oh, that's fine. I'm not going to lose my day because this happened. So I think you only get benefits about being happy, and one thing that happened in my career after I retired that was pretty cool actually, and I love it nowadays, is that every person I would film with, I didn't plan this, but in my opinion, I don't know which belt you are in jiu-jitsu, but if you're purple, brown, or black belt, and I ask you to teach me a technique, it is an honor for me to learn from you, because I'm the one asking. Like, so on every video, I would start a video and say, "Hey, I'm here with Marty today, and it's a huge honor for me." And then after like doing this a few times without even realizing that I was doing, I started noticing the comments that every person was, I guess it's a huge honor for him. I guess
I love it.
And then I was like, okay, now I'm gonna say this on every single video. So I didn't plan this, but now it became almost like my trademark. It's a huge honor for me, and it really is. Like I was being authentic. And I think we're living this era of authenticity.
Yes.
Everybody has social media, and you can either be who you are or fake who you are. And I'm not a fake, so I am who I am. I think people realize that.
I agree. You're very humble and sincere, and it is an honor for you, right? So that comes through. I mean, as that sincerity and that humbleness, which I love. Going back to the happiness, I totally agree with you. I love that phrase, happiness is a choice. And I think that any given time we have a choice on what to focus on in the situation, right? If you're looking for negative, you can find stuff. If you're looking for the positive or what the gift is in that situation, you can find it. And so what we focus on becomes our reality. And it doesn't mean be so Pollyanna that you never, you're going through life with blinders on and never noticing that there's negative. The key to me is just not staying down in that pit of despair and that negativity. If you go there for a few minutes, okay, great. And then you pull yourself back up and you're looking for the good and you're smiling and you literally put that energy out and you attract those kind of people into your life as well.
No, I fully agree. And again, like as you just said, we're all humans, so we have bad days.
Sure.
We have bad mood times as well. But I mean, like, you can kind of control if your bad mood times will be 70% of the times or you'll be 50% of the times, so I'm a human. I have bad days. Also, I am in a bad mood, but I try to make that as short as possible, and I try to reflect and I question myself why I'm having a bad day or why I'm in a bad mood, and then all of a sudden I'm happy again. So,
yes. Don't stay down, right?
Yeah.
Well, with a little bit of time left, Bernardo, let's shift gears a little bit. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in Jiu-Jitsu over the years?
I think like the number one change is the number of practitioners, right? And I think this is an amazing change. It's a great change to everybody. There's only benefits. So I think Jiu-Jitsu has been growing like dramatically in the last like 10 years or so. And I would even think that here in US, one of the reasons might be like there's so many celebrities in Jiu-Jitsu nowadays that for example, like Joe Rogan, he's probably like the biggest influencer in the country nowadays, right? And he loves Jiu-Jitsu. He's a black belt. Then there's Jock Willing, and the Navy SEAL guy, which also loves Jiu-Jitsu. Then Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, he is doing Jiu-Jitsu, and I heard that he's obsessed about Jiu-Jitsu nowadays. And there's so many actors and this and that. So it's becoming like the cool thing, And I even listened to the podcast between Zuckerberg and Joe Rogan, and Zuckerberg was saying that it's 100% conversion rate. Everybody he tells to do Jiu-Jitsu, and everybody he tells to do Jiu-Jitsu, they do and they love it. 100% of them. He never had one case that the person did, oh no, I didn't like it. So I think Jiu-Jitsu is such like a great sport and great product, because there was even a quote from Zuckerberg in that podcast that was like, where it has been all my life, like how I only found this now that I'm like 30 something years old, right? So I think that's the biggest change in Jiu-Jitsu. But talking about techniques and this and that, I think Jiu-Jitsu keeps improving like crazy. If you watch the World Championships of 20 years ago, for example, there was no berimbolo. There was even like Spider Guard and De La Riva Guard was, I mean, like the De La Riva guard started with De La Riva, which was 20 years ago or so, right? I mean, like Jiu-Jitsu has been growing so much on techniques and practitioners that I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next 10 years. I'm really excited.
Yes.
And I think at some point it's going to become one of these mainstream sports, like golf or tennis, or not going to say football and basketball because individual sport, right? But I think it's going to become one of the biggest individual sports out there at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it's grown, and in the last handful of years, or maybe certainly the last 20, but even the last 10, it's just totally taken off. I remember way back when it was hard to find somewhere. I mean, I literally started after the first UFCs doing VHS tapes and not being able to find anywhere anywhere within hours and hours of where I was to train. So I'd just do it, by VHS for a while and did other arts. And now it's hard to find a decent sized town or city that doesn't have several great schools. So
I fully agree.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting to see that many times as many jiu-jitsu schools there is in one city, easier it used to have a jiu-jitsu school in that city, because now everybody knows jiu-jitsu in that city. I think it's much easier to develop a jiu-jitsu school in a city that has a lot of jiu-jitsu schools than in a city that has no jiu-jitsu schools, because on that city, probably the population doesn't know what's jiu-jitsu, so you have to educate them first. And so it shows how it's almost like a snowball thing.
Yes.
People do jiu-jitsu, more people will do jiu-jitsu, and so I think we're definitely in the right track to become one of the biggest sports, individual sports at least.
Agree. So I know that you have tons of benefits, I'm sure, that you've achieved through jiu-jitsu, but what, if you thought about it, what about jiu-jitsu has brought you the most joy?
I think it's the way of thinking, and the way of dealing with challenges and that, because in jiu-jitsu, you're constantly dealing with challenge, right? And for example, you can argue and say oh no, but if you play tennis, you are also dealing with challenge, but in jiu-jitsu it's different, because it's a physically struggling challenge that has some ego involved, that has techniques involved, that has your body on that situation. You want to preserve your body, so it's a very different type of challenge, right? Because you're literally fighting for your life, kind of, right? You're not fighting for your life because you're going to tap and the person's going to let go, but you're fighting. It relates a little, right? You're kind of fighting for. You're not fighting to hit the ball with a racket,
Yes.
And I think life many times is like that, if you have a job, you have to fight for that job, you're gonna have hard times. You're gonna sometimes on your job you're gonna have situations that someone passes your guard and has a chokehold,
Right.
and you're gonna figure out how to get out of that spot in the most efficient way and keep progressing. So I think jiu-jitsu teaches us a lot about life. And it's also almost like a meditation, because when you're doing jiu-jitsu, you don't think about anything else, right? That that's another thing that they were discussing on the Zuckerberg and Joe Rogan interview. Zuckerberg was saying that he loves jiu-jitsu so much because it's a very engaged sport. So it's almost reset his mind on that 1 hour in the day that he does it, because you just cannot think about anything else while you're doing jiu-jitsu. So, and I think same thing happens with surfing, when you see the wave coming and your 100% thinking is there. So I think those are the two things. It's almost the meditation aspect,
yes,
and the way of thinking and dealing with struggles and getting out of the comfort zone and that kind of stuff.
That sums it up perfect, man. Beautiful. The meditative, it forces you to be in the moment, in the present, to be mindful and not be 1,000 miles away or whatever you were caring about work when you came in, and got to the mat. It's you're there, and it's meditative. It's like pressing reset, when you go back through the rest of your day. and also being able to navigate the challenges and obstacles and roadblocks. And life would be boring without some of those. But it teaches you not to be overwhelmed. First you stay safe, and then what's the most efficient way? You look for opportunity, you turn it around by a sweep or whatever it may be, and then get into an advantageous position. So I love both of those.
And I think Jiu-Jitsu also teaches you to sometimes you got to give up and restart again. That's the only choice you have. So sometimes you got to tap, but instead of tapping and not doing again, you just tap, shake hands again, and go again. And
that's true.
So there's so much lessons in Jiu-Jitsu that I think makes the sport very, 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 very fascinating.
I agree. We could do a whole podcast just on that, but I appreciate it. Well, that brings us full circle, man. I totally. It is a huge honor for me, Bernardo, to be talking to you and have you on the show. So you've done so much for so many people, and you're having an incredible impact through the Jiu-Jitsu community and through the world. So much respect to you, man. I thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for your time today.
No, thanks so much, Marty. And it's a huge honor for me, too. And I really enjoyed the conversation. You had great questions. And congratulations for everything you are doing as well. And the same way that I'm contributing to Jiu-Jitsu, you are also, too. You're also doing your best there. And anything I can help, let me know.
Thank you, sir. Much respect and long, healthy, happy life, sir.
For you, too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Really enjoyed that conversation with Bernardo. What a sincerely nice guy and very knowledgeable and insightful. And he's done so much for the Jiu-Jitsu community. So really enjoyed connecting with him and being able to have that conversation. All right. Have you checked out the Breathing for BJJ program? If not, you got to check it out. Did you know your lung capacity diminishes every year that you're alive? As an older practitioner, this certainly is important. So you need something that's going to keep that vitality up and help your performance be consistent at a high level. Perhaps you're a younger person new to Jiu-Jitsu, and you tend to feel panicky in certain situations or positions, or you just don't feel like you have the ability to regulate your breath very well yet. This program is certainly designed for you as well. And maybe you've been in Jiu-Jitsu for many years and you're a seasoned practitioner and you have a high-level game, but feel like maybe there's something missing. Maybe that joy isn't quite there like it used to be. Adding breathing at a high level and learning to breathe at a high functional level can really bring back the oomph and the joy in your Jiu-Jitsu and totally transform your Jiu-Jitsu experience. So whether you fit into one of these categories or something else, I urge you to check out how you can take your Jiu-Jitsu to a whole new level by the power of breathing. Check out breathingforbjj.com. All right, up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
When everybody is against you or don't believe in you no more. It's a lonely feeling. Oh, it hurts very badly. I know what that's like. They look at you with that look and say, why don't you try something else? Why don't you give up?
Get away from these people that's in your life that ain't doing nothing. Get away from people in your life that's hating. Get away from them. Get away from them. If you take an oak tree seed and you put it in a 2-foot pot, that seed will never become the oak tree that oak trees are capable of becoming because it's gonna get stifled by the 2-foot pot. Now check this out. Ain't nothing wrong with the seed. Seed just fell prey to the environment. Don't you allow your environment to dictate the oak tree that you become.
Anytime you move from being normal to trying to be exceptional, people aren't going to like that shit. Those normal people, it makes them feel like shit, so they're going to judge you.
And that's why every true leader, they're called weird. They're called eccentric. When you do the things of real leadership, you're going to be called strange. Get strong enough in your own skin that when people laugh at you or when they throw stones at you, you keep on going.
I respect any motherfucker that wakes up every day and work their ass off to live their life and lifestyle. Clubbing, partying, hanging out, that ain't for me. I'm gonna be out here running in the hot sun, practicing. While everybody else is clubbing and hanging out, you got your focus right.
Don't expect people to understand you. Don't expect it to make sense to anybody why you've got to do this, why you have got to go, why you leave. This is a good job. I'm going. They pay you well. I'm going. Why? I don't understand. You don't have to. I'm going for me. This is something I have got to do. How are you going to make it? I don't know, but I will. The universe responds to the man or woman that refuses to be denied, because that is your commitment. That business that you want, that book you want to write, that dream that you have of controlling your destiny, that is yours. That's available to you. But you've got to be willing to stand there and face disappointment, not have support, be lonely, doubt yourself sometimes, be rejected again and again and again, become bankrupt if necessary, again and again and again, and refuse to turn around until life gives it up. Life will always be, to a large extent, what you make it, not what circumstances will make of it, not what other people will make of it, not what other people say it will be, not what the environment will try and dictate to you, but what you make of your life. So when you're uncommon, get ready for the criticism. When you're uncommon, get ready for the opposition. When you're uncommon, get ready for the common people not to understand you. If I decided to experience the fear of rejection, the fear of no, the fear of failure, the fear of standing by myself, the fear of people not liking me, what else is available? Of taking a chance, a fear of losing it all. What else is available to me? People are going to think you're crazy. You don't have nothing but lint in the corner of your pocket. You're out here talking about living your dream. And people are laughing at you. And they're doubting you. It takes guts, ladies and gentlemen. But let me tell you, I believe in revenge like Frank Sinatra. He said the best revenge is massive success.
Instead of killing them with kindness, torture them with success.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you feel like you're benefiting from the show and want to show your support, you can support us on our Patreon page and a link in the show notes. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.GracieJujitsuRocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.